Hey guys, grab your paints. Today I'm taking you all the way from the sketch to the finished brushstrokes on this lovely white miniature horse watercolor painting. For a complete list of supplies, see the description below this video. We're going to start by sketching the horse's head freehand. So don't be intimidated by this. All we need is enough information so that we can get started with painting. So I have in front of me on my computer screen actually the image, and I've cropped it to the exact size of my 5x7 inch paper, and that just helps me judge where things like the ears and the muzzle and all that are going to go in reference to the edges of the paper. So sometimes it helps just having your image in the actual size you're going to be painting it in. So here at the top of the paper, I'm going to draw a little mark indicating the top of the head. And then the bottom of the muzzle is a little less than a third of the way up, right about here in the center of the paper. And the halfway point of the paper is right where the center of the head is. Just going to roughly draw kind of an oval shape for the muzzle. And then decide on the outside width of the head. And the little ears are coming out about that far. This lovely swooping mane comes down to the side like that. And curves around like this. Once you have some initial sketch marks in, and make sure that these are very light, these initial markings, then you can go back in and refine your drawing a little bit more. So the eye comes down right about there. All right, so we have a nice rough start here. I'm just gonna show the outline edges of the mane coming down right about there, the outside edge of the body, and the center of the body, right in the middle of the paper. And right here in the middle of the eye, we see the side of the horse coming out, flaring out to the side. So we're just making a rounded shape for the body there. And this area here down below will probably wash out, kind of wet and wet. It's going to be no hard edges there, just real soft. So now we can go in and just tighten up our drawing. So I'm going to add this dark shape inside of the ear here. Make the ear a little bit pointier. And erase where it was a little too dark on the edge. There's not a lot of color in my reference photo, so I'm actually going to be adding probably a few more cool blues in there than what I actually see in the photo, just to make it a little more exciting visually. And overall, I want this to be a fairly loose painting, loose and expressive. And having a poor quality photo can actually help with that sometimes. It forces you to see the bigger picture and to not go so detailed. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that initial sketch. There's not a whole lot I need to do to fix it. We can indicate the shadow shape on the side of the head here, just so we're ready for that with the paint. In the center of the head. And some of the anatomy along the side of the eye. And the muzzle is a little bit more dainty than I think I drew it here in this first pass. So I'm just tightening those edges up a little bit. Adding the flare of the nostril. It's like this comma shape almost. There's a dark shadow here. This will be mostly black. I'm trying to make the nostrils even. Okay, so I think we have enough information to get started with our painting. My colors here today that I have on my palette are indigo, burnt umber, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and this is buff titanium. All of these, with the exception of the yellow ochre, are Daniel Smith paints. This one is Holbein, and it's a kind of a messy palette today, but I'm going to go ahead and spray those to activate the paints with my spray bottle. I have a paper towel for blotting and a water jar for rinsing my brush. And I'm ready to start. My brushes today are by Silver Black Velvet. I have a size 8 Silver Black Velvet round brush and a size 4 for the smaller details. I'm going to start with the wet and wet technique. So I'm dipping my brush in the water and I'm just going to cover the entire area inside of the horse with clean water. And I'm going to actually extend that even beyond into the background. Let that go past our pencil marks into the background. There is one extra color I'm going to add to my palette. This is Cobalt Teal Blue by Daniel Smith. So once you have a nice glossy finish on your paper, nice wet surface, but no puddles, you can start to drop in some color. So I'm taking that cobalt teal blue, watered down, and I'm going to start blotting that into the background and letting that overlap into the horse's mane on the shadow side. And on the ear. I'm going to bring that across the top of the head and around to the other side. On this side, I'm not overlapping it into the horse at all. If that happens a little bit naturally, that's okay. But this is just a nice wash of color in the background. Bringing a little of that into the horse's body. And in the mane. And especially focusing on putting color down on the shadow side, on the right side of the horse's head. And then I'm going to add a drip effect here. Move my paper towel so it's underneath it. Okay, so with those nice background washes in, I'm going to start adding some darker shadow shapes using my burnt umber and indigo. Don't want to be too dark just yet. We want to build up those layers gradually. So I'm adding this mixture of burnt umber with a little hint of indigo in it on the right side of the horse. And I'm using a quick short brush stroke, pulling that color up towards the mane. And then I'm grabbing some indigo, watered down. So more of a bluish hint in my colors now for the right side of the body. And what this is doing is it's starting to create the texture of the mane right there. Being a little more careful with my brush strokes along the edge of the nose because I want to preserve the white that's catching along the rim of the nose there. And then here I see some warmer hints in my reference photo in the mane. So I'm using yellow ochre right here. Watering it down as I pull it towards the bottom of the mane. And softening that edge. There's a lot of blending that goes on. Okay, so I'm taking some more watered down indigo, starting to paint the right side of the head. It looks like a cool gray when it's watered down, which is really perfect for these shadows in the head of the white horse. Dipping my brush in the water and then pulling and softening that color in a lighter value towards the center of the head as we approach the light side. Softening that edge. Then starting to use some of that light gray to paint the mane here. I'm going to grab some more burnt umber and add that to the shadow side of the head. Just continuing to drop in color wet and wet at this point. Work on the body on the light side, and I'm taking some yellow ochre and buff titanium, and I'm going to use more decisive wet on dry brush strokes here for the light side of the horse, carving out those shapes with harder edges and allowing the paint that I put down to stay. Added a little bit of that cobalt teal here, which of course when it mixes with the yellow ochre looks green. And I like that color variety. This is burnt umber now. I'm just darkening along the shadow side. And indigo. Down here there's a suggestion of the tail in the photo, and I'm just going to drop in some yellow to sort of hint at that. We don't really know for sure that that's what that is, perhaps, but just dropping in some colors that are coming all the way down to the bottom of the paper. Using watered down buff titanium, just going to articulate the turn along the body with one little brush stroke there and then soften that out. add a really light value here. And one little brush stroke indicating the separation of the belly from the hindquarters. For the mane, I'm going to use some more buff titanium and just start to paint quick, loose streaks of color, leaving highlights in between. And so I'm starting with the tip of my brush and then just flattening a little bit as I come down towards the shadow. That's creating some really nice brush strokes for the mane. And then with broader brush strokes with the paint that's still left on my brush, coming in and painting the whole side of the face and then pulling that down into the center of the head. Adding in some watered down indigo right here. Dropping in some more color on the side of the eye. This is helping shape the anatomy of that eye socket in the skull. We need a darker value there. Watering that down and then softening the edge with my clean brush. And adding a darker value under the eye. This is a combination of very watered down indigo and buff titanium. A little bit of indigo in the shadow here. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush now just to paint the eye. And this is just going to be straight indigo. Make sure you have some juicy pigment on your brush. And then I'm just going to go in and really carefully paint the shape of that eye. There's some eyelashes overlapping, so I'm leaving those white for now. We'll go back in with a slightly darker value to tighten that up and make it look more real. But for now, that's a start. Now, while I have that dark color on this brush, I'm going to paint the nostrils too. So I like to start with the darkest value and just carve out the shape of the nostrils. And then I'll go over it again with lighter washes to create the rest of the shapes. When you're painting just dark colors like this, it just feels like you're coloring in a coloring book almost. You just have to have a steady hand and work slowly enough so you don't mess up. And the muzzle here is real dark. Just painting that in gently. And then the bottom of the mouth comes down and touches that shape. I'm going to water my brush down a little bit for a lighter value and paint between those nostrils. Watering it down again, introducing a little more burnt umber in the mixture, and painting this shape in here, just filling that in a little bit lighter. Softening the edge, softening this edge, rinsing again, going even lighter in my value in that shape. And filling in this one all the way up to the nostril. And if those nostrils are still a little bit wet, they'll start to blend out nicely. If they're too wet, it'll bleed too much, so just be aware of that level of dryness always. Softening that, pulling it up towards the center of the head, pulling that color up. It's another way that you can reduce hard edges. I'm darkening the center of the head here with a little bit of paint that's still in my brush, reinforcing some of these shapes. Now that the paper is dried enough, I can go over it again with another layer like this. And here I'm going darker with those strands of hair, strands of fur coming down. Make sure your brush strokes are clearly vertical. Make sure your strands of fur are going in the correct direction. That's all how you move your brush. Coming back up to the upper portion of the head, we're going to just paint that dark streak inside of the ear. Watering it down a little bit. And carving out that shape and then adding a little bit of yellow ochre over the top. And then in the inside of the ear, I'm going even darker with a little bit of indigo. And now that the eye is dry, I can fill in these values and make those a little darker, more natural looking. Oh, I just love painting horses. They are so fun. It's so beautiful. All right, so we just need to do this ear. Taking my indigo and burnt umber and painting those in. Grabbed a little bit of burnt sienna, I'm watering that down. See a little hint of red inside of that ear. And then switching to buff titanium. Who knew there are so many colors in white, huh? And then dropping in some of those little hints of red into the mane. A little bit more cobalt teal. I'm going to go even more pigmented with a couple of strong brush strokes. There. On the bottom. And along the side of the mane. And here where the mane curves around the forehead. And on the light side of the face. And adding a streak of watered down cobalt teal along the side of the body. And I'm just going to darken the background up a little bit behind the top of the head, just to make the forehead pop a little more. Could even do that a little darker. And along this edge. And then if you have a pop of color like that on one side, it's a good idea to balance it out elsewhere in the composition. And I think that would work down here. Yeah, that works. So there's our finished painting. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you decide to try this project, please tag me on Instagram. I'd love to see it. And be sure to check out these other videos on painting horses. Thanks for watching.